the amount of progress that we could see, farmers being successful, people getting access to the food that they need, the routes and the storage and all of that is what's at stake.
Welcome to Cornhole Champions, a weekly podcast powered by Iowa Starting Line, where we throw bags at the state's biggest stories. I'm Zachary Oren Smith. It's Wednesday, and today I'm joined by Iowa Starting Line's community editor, Amy Rivers. We're all of 2 months into the Iowa legislative session, and we've cleared our first funnel. On this episode, Amy and I go through the slush pile, the bills that made it, the bills we wish didn't, and the bills that are dead on arrival. This session is so off its rocker. We're talking bans on everything from vaccines to chemtrails. Governor Kim Reynolds wants you to give her a pay raise, and of course, a return of a podcast favorite, baby Olivia. Join us as we toss some bags and dance on the graves of some bad bills today on Cornhole Champions. So, Amy.
Zachary.
What do you know about this bid to get Minnesota to transfer the bottom 9 counties to Iowa?
I was forwarded this petition from change.org. It only has 335 signatures right now, and neither the governor of either state has responded to it. So it's not very legitimate right now, but we're hoping that we get it some wider exposure, obviously, through this podcast. But basically, the petition is really academically written, actually. We respectfully petition the state of Minnesota to consider the sale or transfer of the following counties to the state of Iowa, and it lists 9 counties that are all southern Minnesota. This request is driven by the desire to create a more coherent and equitable geographic distribution between the states and could reduce administrative inefficiencies, minimize jurisdictional challenges, and foster regional, economic, and social development.
Yeah, this is dumb as fuck. We respectfully petition the state of Minnesota. Thoughts and prayers. I get it. When we have spent so much of our time gearing up in this legislature to take away rights from trans people, when we've spent this time trying to make it easier for bus drivers to carry handguns on public school buses, we'll get there. We'll get to that bill today. I get it that Iowa's looking to do a little bit of retail therapy. Right there, it's feeling bad. I was sitting on the sofa, in this case, Missouri. I was sitting on the sofa feeling its feelings, and it's saying scrolling Amazon and sees that bottom 9 counties of Minnesota. Maybe that would fix me.
This is so in vogue now. If you look at places like Oregon, they've been talking about annexing or de-annexing forever. I mean, they want to get rid of their whole eastern half of the state, or they want to be annexed by Canada, or there's a whole Jefferson County or whatever the county name is appeal to just secede altogether. And so this is just sort of now becoming a thing that people are half-heartedly entertaining.
This week, rather than a well-balanced meal of stories, there's only one thing on my mind. Friday ended with the funnel. The first deadline for bills hoping to get an autograph from the governor this year to become law. A bill had to clear a committee vote by Friday or be considered dead. Committees are small groupings of legislators in both chambers. Think of them as more topic-driven. Things like they focus on healthcare, transportation, or the ever-popular, how can we make universities in Iowa worse?
Zing.
The Des Moines Register, Iowa Public Radio, and the Gazette all put together nice roundups going through the most important bills. We'll link to those in the show notes. There's a lot to go through here. Amy, how are you feeling on this side of this epic journey to the heart of the Iowa legislative slush pile?
I think ultimately we're just becoming more of a Christian theocracy all the time. I think it's also a canary in the coal mine for probably how Trump and Project 2025 want us to go in the future. So if you're interested in possibly how our country might go, it's good to pay attention to how Iowa's going.
So goes Iowa, so goes the world, maybe.
Yes.
Who knows? There's only what's great about this list, or maybe what's terrible about this list, is there's actually only one bill that has been passed into law. This is, of course, the bill removing gender identity from the Iowa Civil Rights Act. Since 2007, transgender and non-binary Iowans have had state law shielding them from discrimination in housing, employment, education, and more. We've had a stew of coverage on this particular bill, including on this podcast. Amy, give me your kind of initial thoughts. What did you make of this bill that taking away gender identity from the Iowa Civil Rights Act?
Iowa wanted to be first in the nation. We are first in the nation for taking away your civil rights, which is just horrible. Like,
truly,
the history of Iowa as a place that actually gave civil rights to people and gave racial minorities and gave, sexual minorities the ability to do things and have rights before the rest of the country caught up. And now to do something like this is it's a shame.
The law also requires birth certificates to reflect an Iowan sex at birth as either male or female. Adds new definitions for male, female, and sex to state law. It's no longer gender identity; it's gender theory, right? Which they had such a good time with making climate change a theory, right? That they're, I guess, applying the same fucking logic to this nonsense. That law takes effect July 1st, and I just as a plug, Iowa Starting Line is working to collect stories from Iowans across the gender spectrum, trying to really focus in on folks who who had their civil rights taken away by this act. If you or someone is interested in telling their story, write in. You can reach me at zach@iowastartingline.com or amy@iowastartingline.com. Next, let's move to some bills that haven't passed yet but are considered alive. That means they cleared the funnel. First, I want to start with two bills by Representative Helen Hayes of New Sharon. She wants to remove obscenity protections for libraries and educational institutions. Essentially, for a library in Iowa that's looking to kind of add books to its circulating collection, kind of a normal process for libraries across the state. What this does is say that if you happen to annex anything that is considered obscene, well, our obscenity protections do not that we once extended to you, that will no longer be grounds. You can, in fact, face liability for items that are in your auspices that we, the kind of unknown we, consider to be obscene, right?
Yeah, opening up lawsuits and encouraging libraries to sort of self-ban books. Yeah,
totally. What's crazy about it is, like, I haven't reported in this space for a while. Libraries have a process for getting rid of content that its community, right, the people that live around it, don't want, right? Yep. You can go to most library board. The way this works for most libraries is that you go to the library board, you kind of fill out a form saying like, "Hey, I want to challenge this one book," right? And the library takes it up. They consider it and they render a decision, right? And there are books that get banned or get challenged and taken out of libraries all the time, right? Libraries are a reflection of their communities, right? Yep. And obviously if there's material in there that a large part of the community objects to, that's part of the process. The thing is, right? This has nothing to do with doing right by the community or trying to get additional community insight into these decisions. What this is for out-of-state actors when they want to cripple a library system with a lawsuit, right? This gives them, this takes away a key protection for Iowa libraries at a time where they're seeing more and more challenges, where they're seeing greater and greater scrutiny, not just from members of their public, but from national actors that just don't believe they should exist in the first place.
Yeah. Yep. It's just sad is what it is. Yeah, because now you're taking it out of the hands of the community, a larger percentage, and you're putting it in the hands of a smaller minority, possibly only one person who wants to sue you.
It's a troll's veto. Right?
Yeah, it's a troll veto, right? Yeah, the one crazy woman in your town gets to have the say on what books go in your library now.
It could be the crazy woman. It could be the crazy man. It could be the crazy non-binary friend. But like as the previous bill, which passed in 7 days, says, we don't cotton to that too much these days. either.
It's your mom's for liberty, though. It totally is.
It totally is. Right. Who am I saying? I thought it was Derek. I thought it was Derek, the book hater.
Could be Derek.
Fucking Derek and he's illiterate. He can't read the books in the
Derek's
first place.
gonna write in and tell us about all the books he thinks shouldn't be in libraries.
It's, you know who it is? It's Derek from Ogden. Fucking Derek from Ogden. You can't
Write
trust
us.
the guy. Yeah, right in. Come catch these audio hands, Derek. The other bill that Representative Hayes introduced is a return of baby Olivia, a favorite of the podcast, a bill that requires schools to show students a computer-generated video depicting stages of pregnancy, specifically requiring students in 4th through 12th grade to be shown propaganda videos depicting, quote, the humanity of the unborn child by showing prenatal human development, starting at fertilization. The Meet Baby Olivia video created by an anti-abortion group is listed as the only example, and may be the only example that exists.
Yeah.
We went over this, Amy and me and Nicole Hittrick went over this in episode 9 of Cornhole Champions. You can go check that conversation out where we debunk a great deal of the kind of claims and frames of that video. Amy, are you excited that baby Olivia cleared the funnel?
This is like one of the first of many bills that we're going to talk about that are basically like putting mandates on schools while we're taking away their money. So it's just like, I'm just still mad about all that happening. Like, if you're going to keep making them be your Christian theocracy madrasas, then frickin' give them more money so that they can do it, basically.
Yeah. If we're gonna have a theocracy, can we get the church to pass the hat a little around for public schools a little more? Can we? They're tax exempt right now. If we're gonna if we're gonna subject them to
tax,
and we'll get to the Bible studies.
Tax the church.
Yeah. Anyway. The next one is a bill from Senator Sandy Salmon. Sandy Salmon wants the state to require Bible study courses in public schools. The courses would teach the contents, influences, and literary styles and history of the Hebrew scripture or New and Old Testaments of the Bible.
I always wanted to know what baguette means. I can't wait that we're going to be teaching the kids about all of the crazy incest and rape and God smiting us in the Bible.
We were trying to get all the smut out of library. It sounds with all the baguetting that we're going to be talking about
back
during schools. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a real exciting time to be in a classroom.
If I was a teacher and they made me teach the Bible, that's what I'd teach. Like literally the craziest passages.
It would be those. There are like some psalms. So I'm again practicing Christian here. There are like some psalms that are like kind of heated, but
heated psalms.
Some heated psalms. They're not. These aren't cold cut psalms. These are served hot to go.
I might have to get back into the Bible.
To prove the need for this bill, Senator Salmon of Janesville brought in a University of California Long Beach professor, William James, to testify about his research looking at the impact of, quote, biblical literacy on academic performance. He told me during that subcommittee, after the subcommittee, quote, it's hard to imagine a person being regarded as educated unless they have at least a working knowledge of the Bible. This was super interesting because while James explained his background within the subcommittee meeting as an academic, right, someone who's searching for truth wherever it may be, he conveniently didn't mention his work as an evangelist for the General Council of the Assemblies of God, a large Pentecostal sect of Christianity. This was omitted. Again, Sandy Salmon brings in this person saying like here's our academic source for like why this is a really great bill. He didn't mention his personal ministry under the banner of God's Love Ministries. But this Iowa Senate bill fits neatly into his mission to infuse publicly funded schools with more Christian religious education, right? Something he's written a lot about and something that he has talked quite a bit about. I actually found a profile while doing some research on this. I found a profile published to the Assemblies of God website of James and his great work in the gospel. He was quoted in this piece saying, "But I came to the conclusion that while ministers definitely make an impact, so do public schools. Public schools have our kids 5 days a week. Those kids are attending church at most 3 times a week."
3 times?
kind of gives away the
Yep.
the game, doesn't he? Right? That,
Yeah.
like this isn't about while the bill references that it's about the literature of the Bible. It's about Bible as poetry. It's about Bible as history. It's about it's these things. While it says all this, the voice brought in to kind of prove the merit of this bill himself is saying that no, this has actually always been about evangelism. Like we're not here trying to teach literature. We're here trying to convert souls, right? And that's what I don't know. And if that is, that's fine, right? If you're pushing for Christian theocracy, I'm surprised you're listening.
Just say it. Just say that's what you're doing.
I'm surprised you're listening to this podcast. But like say it out. Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest, and we'll move on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's just obviously trying to turn us into the theocracy against the wishes of our founding fathers, against the wishes of our Constitution, against the amendments in the Bill of Rights. Like, be honest that you're just trying to overturn the foundations of our country. Please.
The next one, the last of our biblical gauntlet, religious chaplains in schools. Instead of funding more counselors at our schools, Iowa Republicans want to open up schools to religious chaplains, a group of unlicensed and uncertified people to work with students. Now, those chaplains could get certification, right? They could go get counseling credits. They could go get some training that might, help with students who are going through a rough time. But they got theology, right? And that's basically the same thing, right?
We're just like letting randos come into schools. That sounds cool. They don't need any certification. They don't need any licensing. So, I mean, this is why the Satanic Temple is saying, great, we're available, school districts. I assume Iowa City is going to take the Satanic Temple up on this, right? Like, that'll be who Iowa City puts in as a chaplain.
We are, and I say this lovingly to my beloved town here in Iowa City. We are annoying enough without the Satanic Temple getting involved and stuff. I mean, if they want to come, go forth and Beelzebub bless, I say. But
maybe it'll just be like some tiny town that goes for it.
Oh my God! Like New Sharon.
Somebody's got to go for it.
So that was that's been our Theocracy Today segment. The next one's actually a good bill, right? We got to wash that down, to wash all the religious dogma down. We got an actually great bill. Representative Dave Young introduced a bill that would require school districts from grades 6 through 12 to stock feminine hygiene products in at least half the restrooms in school buildings in the district. There was an excellent bit of testimony from the founder of Love Red, University of Iowa student who you said that we already provide free products in public schools for some body functions, right? We got soap dispensers, we got paper towels, and we got toilet paper.
Right.
Why aren't we extending that to an issue that impacts 50% of students going to public schools, right? Like why wouldn't we make that jump and offer menstrual products?
Because I remember back in school, like you'd get caught unawares when you're first starting your period. You don't have it timed yet, and so you're like, can I borrow a tampon? Like, you just don't have it. Like, so it's really nice to not have to like freak out and do that. Like, especially if kids are shyer these days, which I hear they might be. Yeah, it's kind of nice just to like have it right there, so you don't have to bother anybody and be ashamed of it.
Totally. I mean, like you hear the stories of like folks having to like ball up toilet paper in order to make do.
Just like fold it over. Yeah.
I mean,
I won't get into it, Zachary, but yep, been there.
It's insane. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
And the more we can do to have these products available wherever you fucking go, because like it's gonna happen to you one day, right? I think just makes a lot of sense. It's gonna happen. It's out there.
Yes.
A bill that would give $1 million to the Double Up Food Bucks program. This is a great idea, right? The Double Up Food program by the USDA, the way it works is that it gives a certain amount to users. It says if you're willing to spend this money on fresh fruit and vegetables, we're gonna double that. We're gonna double the amount of money you're saving. So if you're crazy about them carrots, buddy, $10 will get you $20 of carrots. Like, go wild.
It's a lot of carrots. Lock
in on that beta carotene. The problem is the way that this bill got written. It includes a section that limits the total food that can be bought through the SNAP program. I talked to Luke Elzinga on the previous episode about this. The good, right, of this bill is that it gets more food into the hands and ultimately into the mouths of people that need it most. We're talking the poorest of the poor. We're talking kids. We're talking people that need to eat, right? Something that I don't think there's a ton. I hope there's not a ton of disagreement about that people should eat. And while deciding to fund it more, you're restricting the kinds of foods that they are allowed to consume. We're telling poor people what they we're saying to poor people, we actually know better than you. We actually know what's right for you and your family. No matter if you got a picky kid that you're trying to feed at home, no matter kind of what your home situation is.
Right. And the other thing is a lot of processed, easy to make meals that families need, especially if they're working multiple jobs and don't have a ton of money. They need something quick. They need something their kids eat, like you said. You're basically forcing them into spending a lot more time to cook, healthy meals that then their kids won't eat. And then they have to go out and find this stuff that's not necessarily maybe at the convenience store that they're used to going to, or something like that. So, and given that we have lots of food deserts, this bill, while the intentions are good, you want people to eat healthier, all it's doing is putting up roadblocks and going to force people to go hungry.
Carrots and sticks, right? This is a
and
literal
carrot sticks.
Carrot sticks. This is a little. The Double Up Food Bucks is a program that gives you more money for good activity, right? Yeah. Buying healthy choices means more food. That's a great program. If you're trying to shape decision making, carrots are a great thing to do.
Yeah.
But penalizing folks, saying you're not allowed to eat certain foods, limiting that variety. That's hard. Knowing the level of hunger present in this state, that's tough for me to stomach.
The processed stuff is cheap for a reason. If you look at the history, of what was it, World War I, World War II, when literally we couldn't get enough soldiers to sign up because they were too skinny, and that's how the processed food industry became so huge and cheap, and it was literally subsidized by the government. We can start to unwind that. Actually, we could actually put less subsidies on things like corn that contribute
Whoa,
to
easy. Hey, shut that shit up. What are you doing? Amy. Not my
Delete
beloved.
Delete this.
Sorry, the corn lobby. He just came in. He broke into my house. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
The farm bill can support the table food, right? The stuff that we wanted to support. Right now, we're just penalizing the people that are literally using the system that we've already set up. Change the system, but it's too hard for them.
The next bill, Iowa medical facilities would have to post signs telling patients it may be possible to reverse a medication abortion. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecology say medication abortion reversals aren't supported by scientific evidence. There are no proven treatments or FDA-approved methods for medication abortion reversals. This is a crazy bill because it does this thing that I think Republicans are getting really good at, right? Which is lead with the pseudoscience and make someone else have to prove the negative, right?
Yep.
That's the strategy. So many of these bills we can put in that, we can file into that structure. When you take mifepristone, a really common abortion pill, we hear all the fear tactics that the right uses about reversibility, about the impact on future pregnancies, about the impact on the menstrual cycle more broadly. But none of this proves to be true, right?
No,
this is just hogwash science.
Right. It's all just introducing fear, introducing hesitation, introducing maybe it is and maybe it isn't, into the process, when all you really want to do is just ban abortion.
That's right.
Period. That's all you want to do.
In all of its forms. And in fact, one of the bills that died, well, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit since we said the magic word mifepristone. One of the dead bills would have made it illegal for people to prescribe mifepristone to patients seeking abortion care here in the state. Obviously, with the abortion ban in effect right now, there are many people going across the state lines to receive the care that they need. There are many people that are choosing to order abortion pills like mifepristone through the mail from providers in other states. You can go listen. We had a kind of we had a pinwheel of an episode talking to three folks in this space, both the Iowa Abortion Access Fund, Planned Parenthood, and shout out to Micah Chase, who shared their story about seeking abortion care in the state of Iowa prior to this ban. But luckily, the mifepristone ban is dead, even though this nonsense abortion reversal bill remains alive.
Right. Yeah.
And the next one, enrich Iowa funding for public libraries. Public libraries would be ineligible for the state's Enrich Iowa aid programs if they are dues-paying members of state or federal library advocacy organizations. It is intended to target American Library Association, Iowa Library Association memberships, though it does not explicitly mention these groups.
Are they woke? Is that why we're getting rid of them?
It's super interesting. Yeah, the thing is that the American Library Association absolutely does support libraries. Like, they absolutely believe that libraries are net goods for our communities, and that we shouldn't be that all these efforts to try to restrict what people can and cannot read, all these scare tactics about librarians giving all these claims about librarians giving smut to kids. It just doesn't hold up to scrutiny, right? This is not the thing that's happening in Iowa libraries, but nonetheless, they're looking for people to blame, right? So they're going to blame the Iowa Library Association, the National Library Association.
It's just so dumb. Like, imagine penalizing dentists for like being members of like the American Dental Association, for example. I don't know what the professional organizations are. Probably that. But you know what I mean? Like, they use these organizations in order to like stay relevant, in the conversation about libraries. Like, they keep their reference materials and their books and their availability to have like other sorts of things, because these library associations get together and provide them with these resources. Like, it's very, very dumb.
It is incredibly dumb. And what's super interesting about them wanting to ban membership of these, trying to put the pressure on libraries from becoming members of these organizations. The seminal document that these kind of far right actors are upset about is it's called the Library Bill of Rights. It was published in 1930 or adopted in 1939 by the American Library Association. It includes a bunch of like important protections, right? That libraries, it's a kind of a testament of like what they believe library users are owed, right? And like how we are to function, how we are in this kind of in a respectful process. Do you know where that was written?
In Iowa?
It was written by Des Moines Public Library Director Forrest Spalding back in the 1930s. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. I think I remember seeing that. I think maybe like last year when they were trying to like shit on libraries, we did something about that. Because, see, Iowa was the place. It was the place.
Iowa was the place. I'm going to read some sections of the Library Bill of Rights. Now, when indications in many parts of the world point to growing intolerance, suppression of free speech, and censorship affecting the rights of minorities and individuals, the Board of Trustees of the Des Moines Public Library reaffirm these basic policies governing a free public library to serve the best interests of Des Moines and its citizens. I love that it's Des Moines mentioned. Books and other reading matter selected for purchase from public funds shall be chosen from the standpoint of value and interest to the people of Des Moines, and in no case shall selection be based on the race or nationality, political or religious views of the writers.
Woke.
As far as available material permits, all sides of controversial questions shall be represented equally in the selection of books on subjects about which differences of opinions exist.
Woke.
Official publications and/or propaganda of organized religious, political, fraternal, class, or regional sects, societies, or similar groups, and of institutions controlled by such are solicited as gifts and will be made available to library users without discrimination.
Super woke.
This policy is made necessary because of the meager funds available for the purchase of books and reading matter. It is obviously impossible to purchase the publications of all such groups, and it would be unjust discrimination to propose to purchase those of some and not others. Adopted November 21st, 1938.
which was actually, I believe, the height of fascism. Weird.
Weird that in
Weird.
1938, a period where we're worried about fascism in Europe, fascism in America,
Yeah.
the eugenics movement's huge during this period. That we're, of course, we had some folks really thinking seriously about what social institutions like libraries were capable of. The Iowa legislature thinks that that's horse shit, and we need to put the kibosh on these radical librarians and their books. We're afraid of fucking books.
Yeah, they said they weren't coming for libraries, by the way. No, just school libraries, just the kids, of course.
Geoengineering / chemtrails in Iowa.
Yeah.
The bill would ban the emissions of air contaminants into the atmosphere to intentionally alter the weather. Iowa's Environmental Protection Commission would have to adopt rules to enforce the ban on geoengineering, which is the intentional manipulation of climate systems on a large scale to counteract climate change.
Mm-hmm. I think we should also ban Sasquatch. We should probably all... Like, what the hell? Like, this is how far down the rabbit hole Republicans have gone. Like, we're literally talking about a debunked conspiracy theory from, like, the early 2000s, from the 90s. Like, this is just, ugh.
I was wondering why the food in Iowa was so undercooked. Y'all can't get a brown on your chicken. However, y'all, and I figured it out. It was good I figured it out. It's because all the tinfoil that y'all would use to cook your chicken is being used for hats. It's being used for hats. And like, this was really clarifying when I monitored this meeting, and a bunch of folks showed up to talk about how they wanted to stop all this weather manipulation.
Yeah, anonymously.
Now, let's be clear. This is nonsense, right? This is
nonsense.
The notion that there are weather machines, right, that the government is employing to control the weather. Y'all, wouldn't the weather be nicer in Iowa?
The weather would be a lot nicer, right? We're a red state.
wouldn't the weather? Wouldn't we have? I wouldn't mind some.
Trump's inaugurated. Weather's immediately better.
Here's
exactly
the deal.
What we want.
I'll change my. If these weather machines are so effective, now that we got all these Iowa Republicans are in charge of the state for years now, for a decade, since I forget when the trifecta changed over. For years we've been in a Republican controlled state. Trump's in the White House. Y'all got control of Congress. I'll change my voter registration if y'all can just give me Bermuda weather here in Iowa. It's a modest proposal. That's all I'm asking for. If this chemtrail nonsense is holding up, like, please, let's see it. Like, prove me wrong. I'd love to see it. I really would.
How is this bill still alive? Basically,
change my weather, you cowards.
Change my weather, right? Why do we still have derechas? And the other thing is, like, people like have legitimate concerns about like why the cancer rates are exploding, but this is not why, guys. This is like look to the fields.
Oh, here's a fun one. Age verification for pornographic websites. Boys, they're going after your Pornhub. Look out, boys. Websites that display pornographic material would have to verify that their users are at least 18 years old to prevent children from accessing online pornography. Sites that fail to verify users' ages would be subject to lawsuits. Again, the invocation of children that need protection is like part and parcel of how we're making this argument. They did this in Nebraska, which is kind of interesting. A couple of other states. The notion is that you have to, in order to access a site that has pornographic material on it, you have to go in, sign in, do the email verification thing. You have to post a picture with your driver's license to the website, and I think there's some protections for like what becomes of that information. But like who I don't trust with any information ever
is it Pornhub?
Fucking porn websites. Are you insane? Like
yeah, what could they possibly do with that?
What could they possibly do? It's remarkable. It's remarkable that the way that Iowa Republicans just want people to give over their fucking information.
Isn't Pornhub pulling out of states that have been doing this?
Sorry?
Isn't Pornhub pulling out of states that have been doing this?
That's a good question. I don't follow the quarterly reports for Pornhub the way I might should.
I think I read something about that. And so
Those
then
sound kind of fun, if I'm honest.
because then it's a lot easier to just get a VPN address in like a neighboring state and then go on to Pornhub.
Well, and
The kids know how to do this. Also, the kids probably know how to get a fake ID, right? We certainly knew how to do that as
it's
kids.
It's just me smiling with
just says
like
McLovin.
Amy's ID.
It just says McLovin. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I do love that Republicans want to subsidize VPN companies.
Right.
I think that's great that like they're
invest
looking,
in VPN stocks.
Yeah, like maybe they had some stocks in like Nordic or one of these fucking places. So good on you. Good on you. I hope you got yours. This is my least favorite bill, this next one. This one like makes me angry in ways that I can't describe. Shielding pesticide manufacturers from cancer lawsuits. Agricultural chemical manufacturers would be protected from lawsuits from Iowans who claimed their product labels weren't sufficient to warn users of potential health and safety risks like cancer if they comply with federal regulations. Pesticides and herbicide manufacturing giant Bayer has backed the bill, sparking protests at the Iowa Capitol. Amy, it's been called the Cancer Gag Act. This is a bill that wants to minimize the liability that that makers of chemicals that we know harm people, in addition to the bugs that they're made to go after. To minimize their liability and prevent people from getting restitution when a chemical like Roundup is used and has health effects for neighbors down the way.
Right. The rest of the world has pretty much verified that it is at least probably a carcinogenic chemical in Roundup. And the EPA for years, so this isn't just a Trump thing, but we'll get to that. But the EPA for years, with obviously lots of lobbying money, has said, we're not going to do any studies. That, they have like super old study that they're relying on and haven't really like greenlit any new studies, despite Congress saying you need to greenlight new studies as recently as 2022.
Sure.
So, I mean, we're just sort of ignoring this problem. And so when you tie it to federal regulations, so Republicans are saying, well, we're not saying you can't sue them. You just can't sue them if the federal regulations are incorrect. But we could easily even take those bare minimum regulations out, right? Like we have the infrastructure now in the Trump administration to basically like decimate that. And so, for all we know, in the next year, the EPA will be like, Roundup's actually good for you. It actually like provides the vitamins that you need. So even that, when you're relying on federal regulations, it could really just harm people in a state.
Actually, I use a combination cocktail of dicamba and Roundup.
Oh, God.
Instead of seed oil.
Right. The glyphosate and dicamba combo. Yeah.
I think it's incredible. Right, that we are so in the pocket of these massive chemical manufacturers, right? That we are just going to that we would entertain passing a bill that so blatantly is not protecting the consumer.
Yeah,
I think it's wild. Makes me angry.
Yes.
Citizenship status on driver's licenses. Iowa driver's licenses and non-operator ID cards would have to state whether the holder is a U.S. citizen. Under a bill that passed a committee in the Iowa House, the bill says the back of the driver's license would have to specify someone's, quote, status as a citizen of the United States or status as a non-citizen authorized to be in the United States. Republicans have introduced the bill in part as an effort to help poll workers determine who is authorized to vote in elections. This is for folks that may not have clocked that, the idea would be, all right, you're issued a driver's license. On the back of this driver's license, there would be a little section that says citizen or says non-citizen. This is, critics of the bill have pointed out, right, that driver's licenses are not just used in polling locations. It's not just used, as official ID for, any number of transactions. It's also used to get into bars. It's also used to, when pulled over, to drive. Yeah, to drive. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one for a driver's license. and like the notion, the concern, right, is that we have seen increasing attacks on non-residents of the United States, non-resident citizens. We've seen attacks on immigrants who have legal status and have illegal status. In here we have this kind of like flag, right? This thing that will forever flag them as they're trying to grab a drink at a bar after a long day at work, as they're checking out at the grocery store, as they're trying to get on a flight, as they're trying to get any number of things, right? That just forever marks them. And currently, this isn't a problem, right? So if the issue was voting, show me the voter fraud. Show me all the voting fraud, right? I beg you to show me how it's voter fraud that's changing the outcomes of elections, right? I bet you can't. I bet you won't.
Oh, we had voter fraud. It was on the Republican side. Don't you remember?
Oh, right. Was it the Northwest Iowa example? I forgot. What town was that?
Put that headline card right up above me because this was the best. And they just like glossed over it. That wife of the county supervisor who signed up all her friends to vote a Republican in the election for her husband. Mm-hmm.
Nice job.
The fraud is coming from inside the house.
Now let's we're gonna change gears a little bit and dance on the graves of some dead bills as promised. First, we started with the bit about buying pieces of southern Minnesota. Lawmakers never held a hearing on the bill, on Senator Mike Busalow's bill. That would have created a 3-person committee to enter into negotiations with Minnesota to purchase the southernmost row of counties in the state. He got a ton of media attention for this, but like we've said since the beginning, it's a distraction. It's just some bullshit, right, that they pulled out to try to get some headlines.
Do they even have we talked to anybody in these counties? Do they even want to be in Iowa?
There were a lot of people. My favorite quote was someone saying, "Where's Iowa?"
We don't know her. We don't know her.
I've never met her. Iconic. Another bill that died, a ban on administering mRNA vaccines. This was Senator Doug Campbell's bill. Healthcare professionals would have faced a simple misdemeanor and a $500 fine for administering gene-based vaccines, such as the COVID-19 vaccine.
So you can't get your COVID vaccine, right? Yeah.
Every single COVID vaccine would be on this list.
A lot of cancer therapies too now are mRNA.
There's a growing body of research around using mRNA technology to help cure cancer. That thing that we say that we want to do something about all the time. Remember that? Cancer?
Maybe we like being first in the nation and
it's
fastest growing cancer rates.
Hey, a win's a win, baby.
It's dead. It's dead.
Let's go.
For now,
because Iowa's starting line has the freedom to roll our eyes at nonsense bills. We took no small amount of pleasure in this just buck wild.
Are you claiming credit for the bill dying? Is that what you're doing?
I'm not claiming credit for
all the credit.
I think everyone who saw this bill knew that it was fucking dumb and like
really fucking dumb.
Like
we're really gonna cross the border to get a COVID vaccine now. Really?
Well, it's where we're getting all of our. You go pick up your weed, you go get your abortion, and you go get your
triple
COVID
threat
vaccine.
Triple threat.
Yeah. So eastbound and down, baby.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh, and then just to remind you, the mifepristone bill also died. This was Representative Jeff Shipley's bill that would have banned the abortion pill mifepristone from being used in the state. Happy to see this. What is a terrible bill that would have banned a medication that is safer than Tylenol or Viagra from being used in the state. Just nonsense.
Can you imagine if they tried to ban Viagra?
Well, I bet there's a lot of folks in the Iowa legislature that'd be pissed. Just demographically speaking. No. Because I got to see these guys again next Monday. I'm gonna move on. And coming up next, Iowa was allocated $11.3 million invested in our local food system through 2028, but the USDA has decided to yank the plug on that. Almost $7 million of that federal funding being invested right here in Iowa is currently frozen. I speak with Iowa Valley RC&D's program manager. We talk about the impact this is having in the field and how it will come home to roost on your plate. That's coming up on Cornhole Champions. Federal funding cuts are sending shockwaves through Iowa's local food system, affecting everyone from small-scale farmers to the organizations that support them. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represent real livelihoods and the food security of our communities. Today, I'm joined by Giselle Bruskewitz, Program Director at Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development. Based in Amana, Iowa Valley RC&D has been at the forefront of developing Iowa's local food systems, connecting farmers with markets and communities with fresh, local produce. Now they're facing unprecedented challenges as USDA funding freezes have forced them to partially furlough their staff and put critical programs in jeopardy. Giselle, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Set the scene for me a little bit. Could you help our listeners understand the scope of Iowa Valley RC&D and what it does in the communities you serve across the state?
Yeah, so Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development, we're a nonprofit that is a leader in food system development across the state. We work in two different areas. One is value chain development, so making sure that we have the infrastructure and all the pieces in place to really grow the market and grow what farmers can sell and distribute across the state. And then our farmer development side is really focusing on investing in farmers and making sure we can have more small, mid-scale, diversified farmers successful and thriving.
Can you, just as an example, when you're talking about like what value means in these conversations, the example I like to use, I think it was the farmer's name was Alfonso.
Alfred.
Alfred, that's right. Y'all years ago, y'all took me out to his farm at the Poor Farm here in Johnson County. He was growing a field of peppers, and y'all. Habanero peppers, and y'all were working on a value-added, what y'all refer to in the industry as value-added product, right? Working to create a salsa. I think it was a mixed pepper salsa. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Out of the peppers he was pulling out of the farm. Peppers go for a certain price, but that value-added product, that direct-to-consumer product, can be that much more.
Yeah, so value added in local food world is when you take a raw product and do anything to it that increases its value. So that could be hot peppers into a hot sauce, that could be local flour into a bread, that could be local tomatoes into a salsa. There's lots of ways to add value. That helps the farmer, helps that small business make some more money off of that product. When I'm talking about value chain development, what we're talking about is think global supply chain. Think of all of the players that it takes from the farm to the consumer. So when we go to the grocery store, all of the points in between that it took to get that food to our plate or to our cart, we're talking about developing that on the local scale. So how do we get the warehouses and the trucks? Who are the folks who are making the phone calls to the schools who want to buy local food and to the farms who want to know how much to plant or how many locker dates to set? All of that is our local value chain. So it's supply chain, but it's also values based because we're sending 80 cents on the dollar to the farmer versus the 12 cents that or less that they might get in the global supply chain.
And walk me through kind of the immediate, these funding cuts were announced this week. Your organization recently had to partially furlough all staff due to federal funding freezes. Can you walk us through what happened and how quickly that crisis developed?
Yeah, so I mean, there's several stories that we're talking about at the same time, which seems to be par for the course these days. One of which is the federal funding freezes that forced Iowa Valley to furlough our team across the board. Now, it's not a full furlough, but all of our employees here at Iowa Valley had to take a pay cut. And what led to that situation is most of our funding relies on the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. And all of our millions of dollars of signed contracts, over $7 million of executed contracts that we are doing the work on, have been frozen. So that means every time that we submit an invoice, we are being told we cannot give you payment for that for any work done after January 19th. So that led us to the very difficult decision to have to furlough our team. And we're not alone. A lot of nonprofits and nonprofits in our local food space are having to lay people off and furlough employees.
It's a really dire moment. Even if the funding were to come through later, us small nonprofits and small organizations, small farmers can't withstand waiting.
If this gets too personal, feel free to say I want to go in a different direction. But I mean, the way I found out about this was I was grabbing a beer at my local watering hole, George's Buffet, and I run into you, and was it a coworker of yours that were talking about? I didn't know it at the time, right? But y'all were in the tumult of experiencing this tremendous change, right? And sharing a beer, trying to figure out what next steps look like. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's devastating to have to talk about cutting pay. And within any organization, there's going to be different employees that are going to feel that differently. For the lower income employees in any organization, any percentage cut to funding could mean not paying rent, not being able to pay for your children's supplies that they need to go to school.
Mhm.
It can result really quickly in a pretty disastrous economic situation for people. So, I did grab a beer that day, and I was not the only one.
Uh, and obviously, I can now that I've talked about that beer on air, it's like a tax write off for me. I think.
Well,
Uh,
then the next round can be on you when I run
yeah,
into you
it's a deal. It's a deal. Because of your organization's ties to so many different projects across the state. You work with over 300 meat and dairy and produce farms across Iowa. What are you hearing from these farmers, and how the funding uncertainty is affecting their operations, especially as we enter this spring planting season?
Yeah, well, the timing could not be worse. So on the one hand, we have our current signed contracts that are frozen. On the other hand, we have $11 million that was promised for the 2025 LFPA, LFS, LFCC. So those 300 farmers who have been doing an incredible job proving the impact of these programs over the last 3 years have been planning the growing season around this investment coming in. It was announced last October that $11.3 million would come to the state of Iowa. This isn't in the Farm Bill. This is an additional appropriation, and it's non-competitive. So that means that when it goes out to the state, all you have to do is say yes, sign a contract, and write a work plan, and it's yours.
Wow.
So we were promised $11 million. We've been communicating with our food hubs, our food banks, all the folks that work with 300 farmers to plan for this growing season. So, it's a slap in the face, it's really devastating. It's the 11th hour, past the 11th hour for some because the produce farmers already have seeds coming up in the greenhouses. The meat farmers have already booked locker dates. And so the sales projections and what these farmers have been planning all winter for this growing season is now putting them in a really precarious situation where they have to either find other markets, cut back on production, or in some cases go out of business. There's farmers that these programs that have been going on have changed their operations so substantially that they've left their full-time jobs to go into farming full-time. They're scaling acreage, they're putting more dairy cows into production. You can't just take the dairy cows out because the USDA says, "We're not gonna give you this money we promised you."
This work rate in this industry, timing is everything, but in the work y'all do specifically, relationships are everything. Your ability to say, hey, we're working to try to get you this access to this grant funding, hey, we're working on this project. Your ability, you live and die by your business lives and dies by the extent to which people trust y'all to make good on the promises that you give. Here was this federal money that was promised to the state of Iowa, money that y'all were set in charge of administering, money that fell apart, not because of the farmer not making good on the work they're doing, not because of y'all's administrative capacity or the state's administrative capacity, but because a federal cut.
That's right. And the from an administrative perspective, we've been keeping our heads down and planning every aspect of these programs and trying to set them up for success in good faith that when the federal government promises us funding that it will be coming. And so yeah, we're in a really difficult position with our farmers right now across the state. And I mean, the email that I get to send out today to our partners is 950 community access sites to let them know that the free food to their pantries aren't going to be coming this year during a really challenging time for food access. 170 school districts who are feeding thousands of students every day to let them know that if you can find it in your budget for schools to find this money to come in. And then 300 farmers who have been planning production around 3 million this year and the next year and the next year.
I want to see if you wouldn't mind zooming out a little bit beyond the immediate crisis. We're losing $11.3 million that was invested through 2028. That's a long-term investment. That's a lot of infrastructure, and I'm curious about this question of infrastructure.
Yeah.
When we lose this money, like tease it out for me. Like how does this impact our local food system, not just today, but on down the line?
Yeah, so we had 3 years to build a program that had never existed and then make Iowa the best in the nation, is what we've been told from our national partners. Like, other states have come to us and asked how we did it. We always say it's because of the relationships, as you said. Like, Iowa has a really strong local food movement. The Iowa Food System Coalition is bringing us together in a new way. But I cannot emphasize enough the amount of progress and momentum that we have going into this. Like I said, farmers are scaling businesses. The food pantries know their local farmers. They know the food banks, they know the food hubs, they know how to work together to do annual crop planning. Like, we know how to store the food safely. We know how to distribute it out. Rural communities in particular are most affected by this. And that takes time to build. And we needed another 3 years to continue to grow, to continue to scale that, to continue to solidify what the future of our food system is going to look like, where Iowans know how to feed ourselves. So when the next COVID hits and global supply chains break down, we have a viable alternative. That's what we've been building, and that's what we see right now. And the amount of progress that we can make if this funding is honored, I know it's been pulled back, but decisions get reversed. So the amount of progress that we could see, farmers being successful, people getting access to the food that they need, the routes and the storage and all of that is what's at stake.
Okay, we're losing. Y'all are retooling, right? Y'all are figuring out not just how does this impact y'all's staff, how does this impact our relationships, but how do we strategize around the future of local food? And I kind of want you to take a second to talk about, like, what does this mean immediately for that work, right? Where does that leave you? Kind of what tell me about that, where that leaves you.
Yeah, I mean, the first and foremost is to put the word out and share the stories about what either the federal funding freezes or the clawback in funding means for the state of Iowa, and to urge the USDA to make a different decision, and as quickly as possible. That's sort of the first line of defense. Now, after that, how do we keep the momentum going? How do we keep this food system growing and thriving and all of the progress that we've built? I mean, one thing that I've heard from partners across the country and across the state, and I think everyone is looking at, how do we build relationships with private philanthropy? And how do we go to foundations and help people who have the right values and the right kinds of power and funding available to invest in a real way in our local food system? Because we have proof of concept. We've seen what this can do with a small investment, the return on investment that we see. So instead of relying wholly on the federal government to change our food system, I think we're going to have to look to other places for that kind of support. I think just short term, also encouraging any Iowans that have the means to invest in their farmers and help fill the gap this year, especially as people have been planning for this market to be around. If you can go out and buy a CSA, community supported agriculture, get a weekly food box, shopping the farmers market, of course, looking up your local food hub and investing through them. Any way to support local farmers right now is going to be really critical. I think I also, like, it brings tears to my eyes. We hosted the Johnson County Food Policy Council annual forum about just some of the farmers here in Johnson County that had been affected, and the question was asked, what happens if this LFPA funding goes away? And Simon Boyo, who farms at the poor farm in Johnson County, was like, of course we'll keep growing. God willing, if I have breath in my lungs, I'll keep farming. Um, and that's kind of, yeah, I think that's how a lot of farmers think about it. You just keep your head down and you keep going. The food service directors are going to keep feeding kids. We're going to keep showing up to work for as long as we possibly can. It's not the long-term solution, perhaps, but I feel like that's the attitude that I've heard.
I think that's a really good place to leave it. Giselle Bruskewitz is the program director at Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development based in Amana. Giselle, we're thinking about your staff, and I'm thinking about the folks y'all work with. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Take care, Zach.
All right, last, we have this story from Waterloo. Waterloo schools canceled the 19th annual African American read-in, saying it was because they feared, quote, losing federal funding following the U.S. Department of Education's deadline for schools and universities to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, per Iowa Public Radio. It's not just a loss for Waterloo, which has the highest percentage of black students in Iowa at 27% of their student body. The event hosted by UNI brings in an estimated 3,500 first graders from across the state, and pulling out just didn't sit right with 1619 Project author and Freedom School founder Nicole Hannah-Jones. She announced that she'd take up the event and bring in 3 authors instead. It will happen this Saturday, March 15th. Mark your calendars from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Waterloo's West Highs Auditorium. Amy, you live in Waterloo. What's been the community reaction to the school district pulling out?
This has been all over. I mean, especially in the black community, Nicole Hannah-Jones is really the pride of Waterloo. Like, she's natively from here and has gone on to do big things. Even like during her time at the New York Times, I think she was, widely seen as a success story. And then, of course, the 1619 Project just blew up. I mean, so
Totally.
She's very much like a hero to a lot of folks here, and people will definitely support this. And the other thing is, they also thought the school district would have their back, on things like this, given that Waterloo is probably the most diverse district, at least in terms of its black students in the state. The fact that they're canceling this is just like a total slap in the face. This is the 19th annual, right? Like, this isn't just like a new event, that's been happening. They had these authors booked and ready to come. They pass out books to first graders. Like, you're canceling an event where first graders get a free book and get to meet with like authors. Like, so yeah, obviously it's very disappointing. I was reading in Black Iowa News actually today, Abraham Funchess was talking about this. He had a little column and basically just like saying, pulling out of this event under the guise of protecting funding demonstrates a failure of leadership and a misalignment of values. It's particularly disheartening that fear of political backlash, fear of financial repercussions has been allowed to dictate what should be an unwavering commitment to educational equity.
Right.
I mean, this isn't just Waterloo, though. Like, put this in context with like what's been happening at other schools, at universities, at nonprofits capitulating to this nonsense. Like, I went to this recent forum last week in Waterloo where all these nonprofits were talking like very guardedly about how they're losing federal funding, but they're really afraid to like get political about it because they don't want those federal funding freezes to become permanent. Like, is that capitulating actually going to work, Zachary?
Yeah, I mean, it's the question of the Trump era, right? For that all cities, all providers of services are asking themselves, right? You mentioned housing people. I heard during the bill that would criminalize homelessness, a bill that also failed. There was a bunch of housing. There were a bunch of providers of housing assistance in the room who afterwards got talking about just like how concerned they are about the the other shoe hitting the floor on their funding, right? There's so much uncertainty across our network for organizations all of which is made harder, right, when the state doubles down on these actions. You look at, right now I'm working on a project with a University of Iowa history PhD who's, concerned about the way that the extent to which history can be taught, right? Is we're trying to, he's working on a kind of seminar to help put together some resources on how do we preserve, not just like free speech, but like the ability to say what's true about our history, right? The extent to which I was kind of amazed that, the school district would go after this one because, it's not woke to talk about African American history. It's not woke. It's American history to talk about African American history. These are the Black American experience is essential to understand the history of this nation from start to finish. And the idea, right, that we would take away kind of one of these things. I don't know. It's a remarkable dereliction of duty at a moment where we need leaders to stand up, where we need people to be strong and to throw their shoulder against the wheel. I will say, right, that I don't know that they're wrong, right? That this anything that is coded as DEI in this state is in the crossfire, right?
Yeah.
That includes people that trying to teach African American history in the United States, which is bonkers, which is just insane.
And these districts are already facing massive funding shortfalls. Waterloo is already, having problems with their general fund being so far down. They're already looking at massive layoffs coming. They're looking at raising property taxes, probably to a level where we're all going to start yelling loudly about it, from what I hear. So you have to look at in that context, we're starving them of money and then we're putting mandates on that money. It is going to be harder to stand up to this sort of thing.
Right.
We can sit here and be like, you should do it anyway,
Yeah, totally.
But that's a really complicated question for administrators.
It is a complicated question for administrators. And I just want to say that when our institutions fail us, right, it is the sign of a strong community when we are able to persevere and we're able to pull through anyway. I think it's really rad that the Freedom School stepped up to do that when the school district failed to do it, that they said all right, put me in, coach. Let me do this. And we'll have this Thursday morning a special feed drop. I'm going to speak with Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and Waterloo native Nicole Hannah-Jones about this story. I hope you'll join me tomorrow for that episode. And last, I wanted to point you to another great podcast covering Iowa stories. It's called Iowa Down Ballot. It's another project by the Iowa Writers Collaborative. It's typically hosted by the legendary Dave Price of Gray TV. But this Friday, I'll be pinch hitting.
Okay.
I know. I'll also drop the show in this feed. That's 3 episodes coming your way this week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Don't get used to it.
Zachary Oren Smith 3 times this week. Can't beat it.
This mustache is going places. The biggest places. That was another episode of Cornhole Champions. If you like this show, please rate it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. While you're at it, sign up for my newsletter, cornholechampions.substack.com, and get these episodes straight to your inbox when they drop Wednesday mornings. Cornhole Champions is a weekly podcast powered by Iowa Starting Line. This podcast is produced by me with music from Avery Mossman. Cornhole Champions is a proud member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. We'll see you with a new episode next Wednesday. Until then, I'm Zachary Oren Smith.
And I'm Amy Rivers.
Thanks for watching.
You mean listening?
Thanks for listening.
That was good.
Was that good?
Yeah, I like that one.